What's up, guys? Today I wanted to do a quick video explaining what are the differences with the Galaxy S10 Plus, the standard S10, and the S10e. So I get a lot of questions about these phones, which one should I go with? And I just want to go over, what are the major differences between these two or these three phones that you guys should know about. So they all actually have very unique things. They're really similar, honestly, but they have little small things that you guys should know about if you're thinking about buying S10 phone in 2022. So let's go ahead and get started with the hardware because I think this is extremely important here. So all of these phones have glass and metal hardware, so they have that super premium feel. Now, as you can see, the S10e is the smallest phone and it's also the easiest phone to hold, and one of the phones that I love to use because it just doesn't strain your hand. The standard S10 is a little bit bigger, but definitely still very easy to hold. And the S10 Plus, obviously the biggest phone here, but it's not that bad to hold, but it's definitely nowhere near as easy to hold as these phones. So one thing you'll see on the hardware is that you have in-display fingerprint sensors on the S10 Plus and the S10 standard. Now, the S10e does it slightly different, and I think this is actually the better way. I prefer it. Does it with the home button, and you really don't think about unlocking this phone ever. It is really nice. I really love this implementation simply because you don't think about it. The in-display fingerprint sensors on the S10 and S10 Plus are pretty much the same. They're very fast. I usually don't have any issues with them at all. So they work really well. All of these phones actually have face unlock as well too. Also, what you need to know about hardware is that all of these phones also have a headphone jack. So for headphone jack lovers, these phones will be really good. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the display. So the S10 Plus and the S10, they both have curved 1440p displays, and on the S10e, it does have a 1080p display, and it is a completely flat display, which a lot of people prefer because of the accidental touches things. But I usually don't have accidental touches on these devices. They work pretty good. So you will notice a difference here with the punch hole. So you do have a double punch hole for your wide camera up front if you take like group selfies and stuff like that. This is actually a very good phone to do that with. And you can see you have these punch holes on the right hand side. So honestly, I get a lot of questions about the double punch hole in the display. It's not really distracting, and I think it's less distracting than like an iPhone notch or something like that. So I don't think it's a big deal. Once you get used to it, honestly, it's fine. Now these two phones have 1440p display, so they are super vibrant and super detailed as far as the resolution goes. So if you pull up a 1440p video on these two phones, they look really crispy. Now the S10e, it still looks really good with the 1080p display, and then mostly because the screen size is just really small, so you have a massive resolution at 5.8 inches, so it still looks honestly as good as these displays. But like if I pull up a nature video in 1440p, yeah, you can tell that slight difference there. Now honestly, I really think the S10 is like my sweet spot at 6.1 inches. It's not too small and it's not too big for watching content or playing games and stuff like that. But it really comes down, like I said, to personal preference. You could really prefer the S10e just because it's also really not that bad, because the 5.8 and 6.1 is really not big of a difference as you would think. The S10 Plus, obviously, if you watch a ton of content, you're going to want the biggest display at 6.4 inches. But they all have these beautiful Super AMOLED or Dynamic AMOLED displays, and they're just gorgeous. So whichever phone that you want to go with, just know that you're getting a great viewing experience. Now, we need to talk about the software with these phones. So all of these phones are scheduled to get Android 12. I have Android 12 on the S10e, so if you guys want to check that video out and see all the features and stuff like that, be sure to do that. Now, on the S10 and S10 Plus, I do not have it yet, but eventually I will get the update. Now, what you need to know is that Android 12 is the last major OS update, guys. So these phones are currently, after that update, it's in the security patch stages for 3 years. So these phones will still get security updates for the next 3 years. Now I want to talk about software features. So these phones pretty much all have the same features, including the S10e, which is pretty interesting, being the cheapest phone here. Now this is trending for around 200, 250, and this is trending for around 300 bucks. But I was really surprised that these phones pretty much have all the same features here. So if you just look on the S10e, the wireless power sharing is here, Samsung desktop support is here, Dolby Atmos is here, secure folders. We also have just all the little Samsung bells and whistles are here. So there's actually nothing that the S10e does that, you know, these phones can't do, or vice versa. So I really do like that all of these phones got all of the same features in them. Now as far as speed, I can pull up the Geekbench scores and see. Alright guys, so you can see the Geekbench scores and they're all pretty much the same. The Android 12 update will give you like a slightly better score, but honestly it's not really that big of a difference. And then with the multi-core scores here as well too, the S10 actually got the highest score. But if I rerun them, if you do like a fresh boot up on all these phones and run the Geekbench scores, you pretty much get like the same scores. It just depends on how much stuff you have. But you can see right here it says the average S10 Plus is running at 692, 688. So you can see it varies depending on, like, do you have customization? I have customization stuff and a ton of apps and stuff on these phones. Now if you go ahead and get into a little speed test, you guys can see what I'm talking about. Open Subway Surf. Boom, boom. You guys can see basically on par with each other as far as speed. Just blazing fast. Open YouTube. So you guys can see just super fast when opening applications. Still, they're all very smooth. So even though they're older flagships, a lot of people get confused. These phones are still extremely fast here. I also want to touch on gaming performance. Gaming performance is pretty much the same. It doesn't matter which device you get, they will game the same. I have full gaming tests on all of these phones. Just type it in the search bar. Basically it'll be able to play pretty much any game at high settings. Call of Duty, Fortnite, PUBG, it will be able to play at the same settings. Fortnite even ran at 60 frames, which was incredible. It ran very smooth. So if you do want to game on these devices, like I said, it doesn't matter which one you pick, it's going to do great performance. Now the difference is that battery life, and this is a pretty major difference with these phones here. So if you're somebody that really needs the best battery life, you're really going to want to get the S10 Plus, because it's going to give you the most screen on time. Then the S10 is going to give you the next best screen on time, and then the S10e. Even though this phone, depending on how you use it, but for me, usually I can squeeze about 4 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time out of this phone. If you're a lighter user, maybe 5 hours, but that's typically what S10e users will get. So with these phones, you can easily squeeze 530 to 6 hours of screen on time out of these guys, which is very good. So just take note that battery life is going to be basically in this order, right? Now let's go ahead and touch on cameras, because this is pretty important. So like I was saying, the S10 Plus has the most cameras. You can see if I hit that selfie button, it brings me to a wider view, which is really nice. So you get some really nice selfie shots if you're in a group. And also this phone has a triple camera setup. It can shoot in 4K, ultra wide, 2x optical zoom. All of these phones still take phenomenal photos, really great image quality on these phones. The S10, really the only difference that this phone has compared to the S10 Plus is that you don't have that, you know, that wide selfie cam. It still has the 2x. These phones can go up to 10x as well too. And it pretty much takes the same shots. They all use the same pretty much lens. So they all are going to give you basically the same looking shot. And you get some really good shots, great dynamic range, great detail, great color science, definitely for older phones. Now the S10 here, if we go into the camera here, you can see it only has the ultra wide. So if I wanted to take like a close in shot, you know, without having to physically move or use a digital zoom, I won't be able to do that. The digital zoom, if you guys are wondering, the digital zoom will not do as good as a telephoto lens. So just do note that. But if you're somebody that you don't care about the 2x optical zoom, then this still takes, like I said, the same shots. But this one does 8 times right here. I just noticed that, right? The other ones did 10, but that's because it doesn't have that 2x optical zoom. So just keep that in mind if you take a lot of zoom shots and stuff like that. But basically the same camera takes the same shots, so there's no real difference as far as image quality that I can see, at least. Alright, so we've got the speakers at max volume with Dolby Atmos on. Let's see if we can spot the difference, or do the speakers all sound alike. Yeah, the S10 and S10 Plus kind of sound alike. They all sound extremely alike, but the S10 and S10 Plus have slightly, and I do mean just slightly, harder hitting bass, and it's really like minimal, but just slightly. But speaker quality is excellent on all of these phones. You really can't go wrong. It's very impressive how close the S10e is to the bigger S10 Plus. But yeah, that pretty much wraps this video up, guys. That's why I said they're very minor differences, but definitely, kind of important, right? So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you guys in the next one.